Welcome to the first episode of the 2024 version of the free agent episode. I'm here with Yanni.
How you doing, dude?
I'm doing pretty good watching the Eagles choke that one on Monday night. That was that was hilarious. They didn't want the 2-0 lead at the top of the conference.
Are the Saints number one in the NFC right now? They are, right? They're number one in football with the Bucks. It's like the Saints and the Bucks are the only 2-0 teams, right?
Seahawks.
Saints, Bucks, and well, yeah, that doesn't count though. The Saints and
Why
Bucks are
do
the
why
two.
do the Saints count, but the Seahawks don't? I'd say all three of those teams don't count, and all the good teams are 1-1.
No,
Like,
no. The Bucks count. The Bucks have multiple Super Bowl champions on their roster. They have a coach who's coached multiple playoff runs, I believe, in a Super Bowl. I think Todd Bowles was the defensive coordinator when they won.
you think the
No,
Bucks are in the same tier as like the Niners, Eagles, Lions? You think they're in the big boy conversation? I think they're going to have trouble beating the Clint Kubiak in the Saints for the South.
when you when you go home and or when you go to the Lions place and you beat them like that at home and your defense shows out like that, I think you have to be considered legitimate. The Lions were the team that Vegas had as the second most effective offense in the NFL this year, dude.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
Goff
we'll
pissed
see,
that one away. Goff pissed it away, but I think there's
but
some truth to it. I think
I
there's some
think you
truth.
have to treat them as legitimate. And same thing with the Saints. I mean, maybe they won't keep it up, but I think you have to treat them as a legitimate team for now.
All right. On that note, for first-time viewers of the show, I mean, we haven't been really good about recording this one, but on Tuesday morning, we like to put out our free agent episode, and it's like good waiver wire pickups. It's buy lows and it's sell highs. So we'll just go through them. I think that this week, week two, is going to be probably a better waiver week than week one, which is kind of strange for the NFL. Usually, week one is where all the gold is, but we got a good one this week.
Okay, my free agents first. The guy who is surprisingly, I believe, number 2 or 3 in fantasy points per game at quarterback, Derek Carr. We were just kind of getting into it a little bit. I don't know if the Saints keep it up. I really don't, but no way should Derek Carr be on waivers. When you have guys like Trevor Lawrence getting like 11, 12 points a game, Justin Fields, who I thought might be a decent pickup, getting 11 a game, Brock Purdy's averaging 13 a game, Tua's out, Jared Goff is like at 12 and a half a game. Some of those kind of guys who punted on quarterback a little bit, you're probably feeling that right now. And I think Derek Carr has to be added to bolster your quarterback roster. Jordan Whittington, this is a personal one of mine. It's a weird. I thought he was a really good football player in college. I thought he looked really good in preseason. I actually was expecting him to have a role in the Rams offense, even with Puka and Cup healthy. Now that Puka and Cup are out, I know they seem to really like Robinson. Look, the ball has to go somewhere. It's going to be a big downgrade. The offense is not going to be right. The ball has to go somewhere. And my bet is going to be that Jordan Whittington starts to eat up that volume. We saw him get involved a little bit this week. I expect his role to continue. I wouldn't even spend fab on it because I don't think anyone's really going to be in on him. Just claim him if you have that kind of floating roster spot at the bottom of your roster. See how he does this week. They draw the 49ers, really tough matchup, but I still think it's worth it to have him just in case. Sam Darnold, again, you're probably not grabbing him if you drafted the top 10 or 11 quarterbacks, but if you drafted in that more 12 to 15 range, right? Sam is playing productive enough. I think he's at about 17 and a half points, and he's actually played a pretty good defense in the Niners, and they did well. He's getting Jordan Addison back. It looks like JJ's injury isn't long term. Hawkinson's coming back at some point. I think he's certainly worth. If you're streaming quarterbacks, you could do a lot worse. This one, again, one of my passion projects this summer or whatever. One of the guys I really got on, Rico Dowdle. I still think he's the most talented running back in the Cowboys. He's the only one that's not dust. Dalvin Cook's basically a non-factor. Zeke is done, just done. He should not be playing in NFL games. He should be hanging out on the beach or whatever. They got him way more involved this week, and I noticed Dowdle was dropped in a lot of leagues last week, which I thought was sort of interesting. Check your wire. In no way should this guy be on the wire. And he is one of those rare running backs where not with an injury, not with some weird thing. It's just, I think he will naturally take over this backfield and be the guy to own. Now, maybe you don't want to own it. I saw some takes this week that just don't own any Cowboys backs. I think that's silly. They're one of the best offenses in the NFL when they're going. You want pieces of the backfield, and the piece you want is Rico Dowdle. Mike Gesicki, if he didn't have that weird touchdown called back in the first week where it looked like he came down with it, he sort of didn't. He saw 9 targets this week, 9 or 11. I don't remember. He might have had 9 catches on the 11. Between 9 and 11 targets and between 7 and 9 catches. He had a really nice ceiling game this week. I know that their backup guy who had suffered the injury in college looked pretty good. So, maybe it doesn't last, maybe it does, but if he didn't drop that touchdown, he'd be looking at like a 15 point, 14 point per game average the first 2 weeks of the year. Joe Burrow seems really comfortable throwing to him. It seems like Jamar Chase is checked out. Higgins is injured. I think Gesicki's worth picking up. And the last one, this is a more deep league stash, or if you're really hammered with injuries already at receiver, which is totally possible. Puka, AJ Brown looks like it's going to be a few weeks. Debo Samuel looks like it's going to be a few weeks. Amon Ra is day to day, possibly week to week. We have all these injuries stacking up. One of the guys in me and Ted's league has Debo and Cup, and his next wide receiver, I don't know why he drafted like this, is Odunze. So if you're in a place like that, I actually do think Jawan Jennings, so long as Debo's out and so long as Pearsall's out, I would pencil Jawan in from anywhere from 7 to 9 catches a game. In PPR, he'll probably be pretty good. Purdy actually likes throwing to him in the red zone, and they run a lot of designed routes to him in the red zone. Again, probably more of a deeper league thing, 14 and 16 team leagues. But if you're desperate in a 12 team league, if you need streamers this week, if you need depth, which is, I could totally see it, everyone's hurt right now, you could do a lot worse than Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, 100%. Just gotta glaze Jawan a little bit more. Dude, at least as a fantasy asset, I don't think he's usually as good as he is in the actual games. But with Debo out and BA Rusty, it's got to be him, I'd imagine. So yeah, good call out there. All right, I'll do my free agents now. We're starting with the quarterback on my favorite franchise, the Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith. I mean, this is more of a super flex pick, but I mean, obviously he dropped back to pass 55 times yesterday against the Patriots. There's been a lot of talk about Brian Grubb, the offensive coordinator. If you are bought into this being an air raid type of offense, you could take a shot at it. Obviously, if you drafted JSN, you were probably feeling really good last week about the usage there. I would imagine they're going to keep him involved. In terms of Fab, it's kind of a tough call. It depends on your league. If you're a 12 team league, I wouldn't drop more than 5-10% of your Fab on Gino. If you're in a super flex and somehow he's on the waiver wire, drop a stack. If you have 100 Fab dollars, I'm good dropping 40 or 50 on him. Get your guy if you really need it. Next, we got the combination of Carson Steele and Kareem Hunt. I put them both on here. Right now, Carson Steele looks to be the locked in two in Kansas City for what that's worth, but Kareem Hunt has visited the Chiefs today. I would assume that because he's familiar with the offense and has played for the Chiefs before, they'll probably sign him, would be my guess. This one, it's more of a situation volume play, right? Like, I'm not enamored with Carson Steele as a player, and Kareem Hunt, like, I think his best days are probably behind him, but you're buying in on the Chiefs offense, which is one of the best offenses you could possibly be in the league. I don't expect either of these guys to be like world beaters or anything, but they should be solid, especially like if you need that extra bench depth or even like an emergency flex, like they should be fine. Carson Steele, I'd probably feel comfortable. It depends on your roster, but I'd probably feel comfortable dropping 20 to 30 on him and Fab out of 100. And Kareem Hunt, you could probably just get him for free. I wouldn't waste Fab on him, but there's a good chance you might just be able to get a free claim on him. Next is Darnell Mooney. Big performance tonight against the Eagles. This is one of me and Yanni's like favorite like unknown players. Obviously there was a period of time where he was viewed as the number one wide receiver in Chicago. That was interesting. That didn't really work out, but I think as a two, like he's a nice piece. To me, Kirk Cousins looked like he had a lot more juice tonight. I don't think he's dead yet. Obviously, I think he's still got a ways to go. He's struggling to drive a little bit into his throws, but I mean, he orchestrated that comeback tonight. This is better. This is better quarterback play than the Falcons have seen in years. If you're in a deep league and you need a wide receiver, right? Like if you are a Cup roster or a Debo roster, whatever, I'd give him a look. I wouldn't drop any Fab, maybe like $5, like not too much. I don't think he'll be highly coveted, but he's a good player, and if he gets opportunity, I think he'll do well in this offense. Next is Braylon Allen. He is like a hardcore handcuff, like standalone value. Obviously, he got you there last week with the reverse 20-yard touchdown, but this is more for the Brees Hall owners. He is the clear-cut handcuff for that backfield. If Brees goes down for any reason, it should be Braylon Allen, like all the way. He's a good player in his own right. I just if Brees is in, I wouldn't ever start him, but he's a nice little security. nice little security piece. If you're in a league like the one me and Yanni are in, where people are scouring the waivers and they're sharp, I mean, I don't know. He might not even be there anymore. But if he is there, if you're the Brees Hall roster, maybe $5 fab. If you're not a Brees Hall roster, I wouldn't spend any fab on him, honestly. I would just see if you can get him on the waiver claim. And if somebody overpays for him, if somebody pays like $20 for Braylon Allen, let him make that mistake. Next is Andy Dalton, the new starter for the Carolina Panthers. I just can't quit the Panthers. I was off them for a week, but now I'm back on. Now that Bryce Young, the real problem with that team. Well, I mean, there's a lot of problems with that team, but I think he was the biggest one holding everybody back. Um, Andy Dalton,
Yep.
like obviously his best years are behind him, right? Like nobody, this is a super flex option. Just to be clear, if you start Andy Dalton in a 12-team league, you're a psycho, and I don't want anything to do with you. But if you're in
Yep.
a super flex league and you had a quarterback go down, or you drafted late quarterback and you maybe have an underperforming guy like Caleb Williams or Will Levis in your lineup, and you're looking for either depth or a potential like matchup based start, I think Andy Dalton should be fine. A lot of my priors kind of go behind this one with Dave Canales being one of the most quarterback friendly coaches there is. Regardless of how Bryce looked, that's a Bryce problem. That's not a Dave Canales problem. I think that all of the weapons that Carolina has, even though they're not top end, they're good enough, right? Like I think Deontay Johnson, I might be alone in this. Like I think Deontay Johnson's a very good player. I think he should be, if he has a like competent quarterback, he should be a volume target monster. Like all of these guys, Xavier Legette, I think is probably gonna at least have a chance to come alive here. I'm in on Andy Dalton. He's an old guy, he's a little over the hill. He's not the best quarterback, but he's gonna air it out. He doesn't have a noodle arm like old Ben Roethlisberger. In terms of fab, it depends. It really depends on your league, right? Like I'm in a super flex league right now that actually had Bryce Young rostered because I'm an idiot. And I dropped. It's a $200 fab league. I dropped $45 on Andy Dalton. I think that's gonna very clearly get it done. I wouldn't. If you're in a $100 fab league, I wouldn't drop more than, I don't know, $20 maybe if it's super flex and you really need him. And if you're not in a fab league, just put in a claim, see if you can get him if you need him. Then last is Marshawn Lloyd. You know, in the offseason, right? Like people were thinking that he was going to be on the IR during drafts. Turns out he wasn't. And with AJ Dillon being out, he seems like the clear cut two in Green Bay. I know he just went down with an injury last week. I would keep your eyes on that. But I view him not strictly as a handcuff. Like yes, he's like more so a handcuff than anything else. But I mean, he gets, at least his profile coming out of college is that he's a good pass catcher. He's a fast, shifty guy. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see him as the year goes on kind of get integrated into the Matt LaFleur offense a little bit more. Matt LaFleur likes to use two backs. You could do worse than Marshawn Lloyd in deep leagues if you're needy for a running back. In terms of fab on him, if you're the Josh Jacobs roster, I don't think it makes much of a difference, right? Because I think my prognostication here is that Matt LaFleur is going to want to maybe go 60-40 on this, like, or maybe 70-30, like if they're both healthy and ready to go, which if you have a handcuff that's 70-30, I don't find that as valuable as say like a Zach Charbonnet, you know, who's not really going to normally work in. I think in terms of fab, probably I'd feel good dropping like $10 on him. I think that's fine.
Just real quick about the Carson Steele Kareem Hunt thing. Uh, in PPR, you probably want P Ryan, right? Because he's going to get the receiving work. But generally speaking, I think people are going to spend a lot of fab. I mean, I have one league with Pacheco. I might end up spending like 30% or something on Steele. But generally speaking, I would guess what's going to happen is they're going to sign Kareem Hunt. It's going to be a mess of a backfield, and people are going to have way overspent their fab on all three of them.
Yep.
So it may end up being, I think it's the right call, right, to go in because you might get the starting running back for the Chiefs that gets 15 touches a game. So it's worth the risk. Just generally speaking, my feeling is it's going to be a mess and they're going to pass a lot more anyway now. I think that's the most likely outcome there.
Yeah, this isn't one, even though like obviously the Chiefs offense is tempting, right? But there is some ambiguity here, and like they could always bring in a veteran too, right? Like Jerick McKinnon is a free agent right now. I'd be terrified of
Yeah.
that as well. Like to make this messy, this isn't so like I don't know if Kenneth Walker ever went down for any reason.
Yeah,
Like
that,
Zach Charbonnet is like a dump all your fab type of deal.
yeah.
It's that this isn't it, but I would, because I don't think if Carson Steele's on your waivers, like what's the minimum you think he'll go for? Like I don't think you're getting him for less than 30 personally. I think
25,
people will be too excited.
25, 30. Dude, there's no, it's
Yeah.
not even that people are too excited. The number of high end productive fantasy guys injuries and combine that with the number of duds in fantasy from like round 7 to 12. Like, dude, a lot of the guys going in there are just, they're nothing. They're nothing. There's people that are starting Javonte Williams as we speak. Um, so when you combine it, yeah, he's going to go really expensive. I just don't know. To me, I wonder if with all these injuries, like maybe you want to be cautious about fab. I know the general thing is blow it all up front and then deal with it later, and that's what people are going to do here. But I just wonder if fab is going to mean a lot more later in the season, just with the weird trends of this season. We'll see.
It's interesting. We haven't had that one like just free agent that jumps off the page other than likely week 1. And I mean, your week 2 returns weren't great, right? Like that guy who spent like $100 fab on Isaiah Likely
Guys,
probably feels like a
100
stooge.
fab, 100% fab, and not that it's like a huge money league, but there's a $600 pot at stake here.
Yeah.
Dude blew 100% fab week 1. Anyway, yeah, we'll see.
All right, let's go to the sell highs.
Okay, sell highs. I only had one. I really thought about just briefly. I really thought about adding Drake London on here because he got the touchdown at the end of the game, and all of a sudden it looks nice and clean. He got his 15-point game. Um, it was something I went back and forth with. I just do think that A, Penix is good enough, and B, Kirk looked at least improved enough here that I probably do want to hold on to London for a little bit, but I don't hate it if you decide that you can get something good for him right now. Um, I don't, I don't know who someone might be willing to give up. Like, if
If
I
you
could get
could get Tony Pollard for J.K. Dobbins, would you do that?
so well, I'm going to get to Dobbins. I'm talking about Drake London here. Um,
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think like if the name brand and the draft position meant enough to someone, if I could flip Drake London for like Devonta Smith or DK, I'm doing that all day, all day. I don't know how realistic that is, right? Your league might be a little stingy, but those guys went like 20 picks behind him. If you can do something like that, again, if you're feeling really frisky, like if you could do Drake London for Ayuk, yeah, yeah, I might take that shot. So just I really contemplated putting him on here. Something to think about. I'd shop him around a little bit and see if someone might be willing to. But my official sell high is going to be J.K. Dobbins. I have seen the craziest trades in the fantasy discords, the Fantasy Pros Discord, the Big Fantasy Football Discord, where people talk trades all day. I sometimes go in there. I just like to see what people are moving around. I have seen J.K. Dobbins going for Ayuk 1-for-1. I have seen J.K. Dobbins going for Devonta Smith 1-for-1. I have seen J.K. Dobbins going for Ramondre 1-for-1. Um, I saw Trey McBride for J.K. Dobbins. If people are really valuing him, like he should have been a top 30 or 40 player this year, right? You should sell him. He's had an ACL, he's had an Achilles. We know the deal with Dobbins. He always is amazing when he's healthy, and then he's not. And maybe it's a Mostert situation again. Maybe we have a second one that he actually stays healthy and keeps us up all year. The odds of that feel extremely low to me. They feel vanishingly low to me. My understanding, based on the orthopedic surgeon that I listened to break it down, was he should be at full speed for 2 to 4 weeks, and then it should drop off a cliff. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I'm not a doctor. I do take injuries really seriously, and I do think his production has been totally disproportionate to what you would expect for someone coming off an ACL and an Achilles tear. Uh, his workload's a little lower. Maybe that keeps him floating for a little bit. But yeah, I would be selling Dobbins, and I will probably say every week to sell Dobbins until you can't anymore.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I have a hard time with injury prognostication, right? Because unless you're like really, really old or something, right? Like, I don't think it's very reliable usually to just bet on an injury. For what it's worth, the underdog guys said that if J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, there's no way he's not a top 10 running back. I don't know if I'm that in on him just because of like how many bodies are there in LA and just kind of the teams they've played, right? They played the Panthers and they played the Raiders. That's not murderer's row. And the Chargers have kind of had positive game scripts in those, in those contests. So if the Chargers play like a real team, right? Like against the Kansas City Chiefs, for example, if the Chiefs go up like 14 to 20 on him. Like, you think they're going to be running the ball 40 times a game? Like, I like J.K. Dobbins. I'm kicking myself for not drafting him, but I see your point on the sell high. If you can get a premium asset that you feel good about, and you're, doing good at the running back position, I'd give it a rip. I'd poke around and see what you can get for him. All right, mine. And I have been thinking about this since Thursday. I am so excited for this one. Sell your Devon A Chain now. Sell him now. I know that like the fantasy nerds are like just punching their walls and like, pounding their tables and telling me how stupid I am for selling Devon A Chain because apparently he is like the fantasy darling here. But hear me out. Hear me out on this one and tell me if you're still interested. So, last week, or I guess this week, week two, he had the absolute dream usage scenario with Tua going down and Raheem Mostert not being available. He got almost all of the work. Managers were calling for him to get pulled at the end of the game because they didn't want to see him hurt. He scored, I believe, 29 PPR points, which almost outscored James Cook, who had 3 touchdowns in the same game, right? So fantasy managers are at an all-time high with him. Everybody is patting themselves on the back for their third round, fourth round Devon A chains and drafts, and early returns through the first 2 weeks are really good. He's like got to be like a top 5, 10 running back right now. But here's the pitch. Here's the pitch on why you should sell him. First one is Raheem Mostert is coming back, and I don't think he's going away, barring injury. And that man is made of glass, so he gets injured a lot. But I think that after a 21 touchdown year last year in the Dolphins offense, I don't think he's going anywhere. And then there's just like a bunch of other guys in that backfield too, right? You have Jeff Wilson is in the mix. You have Jalen Wright. He's there too. So I don't know. To me, and Mike McDaniel actually came out today and said that, oh, well, maybe we'll get Devon Achane more involved. But to me, if all of the guys in Miami are healthy, I don't see him being on the field for more than 40% of the snaps. So you're basically banking on his explosive plays, which you can do that and it feels good, especially when he's grabbing a bunch of like, passes, short passes and getting home. But especially with Tua's injury too, like this offense, like it doesn't, it's broken with Skylar Thompson. It does not work as intended. Jalen Waddle disappears when Skylar Thompson is in. Tyreek Hill averages like 10 fantasy points per game uh, when Skylar Thompson is in. To me, this is like the perfect window, especially since all of like the fantasy analysts like Derek Brown or whoever it is that you like to, right? Whoever you like to listen to, right? They are all in on Devon A. Chain. They're taking victory laps, telling you I told you so. So I wouldn't sell him for nothing, right? Like right now, as it stands, he's been good for you, and I wouldn't sell him for peanuts, right? But but I think there's an argument to be made if you find the right, content brain fantasy manager that maybe is like a little bit low on one of the top guys, like Jonathan Taylor, for example. Like I was on Twitter this week and I was telling people, I was just in the comments like a psychopath telling people to sell Devon Achane. And I was like, well, you can get a guy like Jonathan Taylor. And people called me fucking stupid. They were like, why would you trade Achane for Jonathan Taylor? Are you out of your mind? God, you're such an idiot. Like, dude, like it's there. It's there if you get the right guy to get like a premium asset. Like Yanni, would you prefer to have like Jamar Chase on your team or Devon Achane?
See, we disagree on this. You shouldn't ask me that. You know what my answer is going to be. No, I'm not selling Devon A. Chain. I'm not doing it.
So you
I'm
would
not.
rather have Devon Achane on your team than Jamar Chase. My
Yeah,
point is proven, boys. My point is
he is
proven. You can
very
get
strong.
like a top of the line guy here, and like it is putting Devon Achane on the sell high. We're asking you to do a brave thing, right? Like it is not the whole idea behind sell high is you have to like get rid of guys that are at a high, and it's hard to let them go. Like it's really hard to let them go. I get it, but you can make a league winning move, in my opinion, selling this guy. I don't think the ceiling is there. I don't see it. That's what I got. Yanni's already told me he disagrees.
No, I mean, look, if you're saying that you think Tua is going to miss 8 weeks and like that's going to totally change the way the rushing game works, I mean, I think that's reasonable. Dude, I would want Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor plus or Jonathan Taylor plus like an upgrade in another position.
Yeah,
or like
I would do it for Gibbs too. The point here, it's less so that Tua is going to be out. I mean, but I think it factors in, right? More so, the reason I'm selling A Chain is because of the weird amalgamation of running backs that are in Miami, and I think Mike McDaniel loves Raheem Mostert, and I think Raheem Mostert is constantly going to be a fly on your fucking ass on this team. Like, I would not be shocked to see a 60-40 like Mostert A Chain split, right? And you're like asking a running back to, that gets 40% of the snaps to like return you elite RB1 status, like it's tough. And I think the reason I bring up Tua, right, is I think this offense is about to drop off a fucking cliff, and
yeah.
you're about to get like a 2 or 3 point dud from A Chain. It would not shock me to see A Chain in single digits, and then this momentum is just totally gone. So that's it. It's a brave call. It is not for the faint-hearted, but if I ever would have rostered this guy, I was not drafting him anywhere at ADP. But if I did have him, I would be selling the shit out of him because that usage is not elite RB1 usage. I'm sorry, boys. Go get Jonathan Taylor. Please let me know in the comments if you are able to sell A Chain and what you get for him. I'm really interested to see. Or maybe I'm just a big fucking idiot who's selling my winning fantasy season, my league winner. But on that point, we've gone on this enough. We'll do the buy lows now.
Okay, so super simple theme for the buy lows this week. I'm targeting receivers that are getting elite air yard shares, elite target shares, and they haven't produced yet. Garrett Wilson is seeing like a 30% fucking target share. If you are Aaron Rodgers receiver and you're seeing a 30% target share, I will bet on the positive regression all day, every day. He's been really disappointing. I'm so far this year, I have 10 teams. I'm 14-6 in my fantasy seasons, and I only have one team that's 0-2 that has accounted for 30% of my losses this year, and it is a Garrett Wilson team. He is killing owners that took him at that 1-2 turn. Believe me, it's not feeling good right now. Those people are panicked. They're worried. I sent out some pretty insulting offers for Garrett Wilson this week. We'll see if someone takes it. Same idea, Olave. The passing volume was really low this week, but Olave did see a 30% target share. It has to be weird to see the Saints offense going off the way they are and not seeing the points go to Olave. And he didn't do well last year. I really feel like it's like this pressure valve of people must feel like they want to get out. Again, I would be seeing like, it depends what your roster composition is, but if you could do like Brian Robinson Jr., I really love Brian Robinson Jr., but like if someone will give you Olave for him, you have to think about it. I'm trying to think of what other receivers kind of went in that range. If depending on how you view it, if someone will give you Garrett Wilson or Olave for Chris Godwin, um, that might be worth the risk. That might be worth the risk. Maybe not. Maybe not to you, but to me it is. Brandon Ayuk. I just sent out an offer of Xavier Worthy for Brandon Ayuk. Again, insulting offers, man. Try them. Ayuk has, I think, 11 points in half PPR through the first 2 weeks. You absolutely are panicking if you took him at the 2-3 turn. Debo's set to go out. Ayuk should be in better shape as each week goes on. I don't expect him at full speed until week 4 or 5, but this is Brock Purdy's guy. Brock Purdy is actually in the top 10 of almost every metric for quarterback efficiency, passing yards per game, quarterback rating so far. I know it doesn't feel like that, but he is. It is going to come around for Ayuk. I would be trying to sell these receivers that have been performing really well lately. Those are kind of your 3 high-end guys. The 2 cheaper guys, I think you're kind of bargain bin shopping, and you might get a really good price on them. Ted's going to hate this, but George Pickens. George Pickens has had, to my count, to my knowledge, like 14 or 16 fantasy points called back on penalties the last 2 weeks. He had that crazy bomb from Fields the first week called back on a very, ticky-tack offensive holding call. He had another offensive holding call take out like another 40 or 50-yard bomb that he caught this last week. And then he had the offensive pass interference on the goal line that took away his touchdown. George Pickens is again seeing that elite air yards, elite target share usage, and he probably should have had like 2 15-point performances the last 2 weeks. It's a really bad break that he's gotten that way. Even his targets were low this week because they kept getting erased from the penalties. I think you can literally get him thrown into a deal right now. I would most certainly be trying to get George Pickens. I may even go as far as to say it's a league winning move if you can get George Pickens for cheap onto your roster. Similarly, Tank Dell. The delta between Tank Dell and Nico Collins right now is in no way indicative of how it's going to end by the end of the year. That he equally targeted Nico Collins while they were playing together last year, and he actually dropped Nico's targets to single digits by the end of the year last year in games when they were in there together. It has just been a weird break. He should have had a 50-yard touchdown this week. It skipped off his hands. His air yards are elite. He's just not seeing the field quite as much because they're kind of sitting in there. They're running the ball. They have had good leads, and that's certainly what's depressed his value. But overall, I would be totally comfortable, depending on price, but more or less, totally comfortable picking up Tank Dell. I think he's going to have a way better second half of the season. Yeah, buy with confidence.
Yeah, I think everyone on this list is a buy for me at the right price. George Pickens, I feel like, is this your first year rostering George Pickens, or have you had him before?
My first year. I have him on 2 rosters, but it
Okay.
is my first year.
Okay. So I've had George Pickens every year on some roster in some way, shape, or form, except for this year. And George Pickens is the king of the catch that almost was but wasn't. Like the dude,
Like
like,
the out of bounds catches and stuff.
yep, yeah, he makes the most amazing out of bounds. Oh, but 1 foot's touching the white line catches of all time. Like this is just par for the course with Pickens. I mean, you're asking fantasy managers to, well, I don't know, because Pickens is kind of like a very popular guy, right? Like, just ask Steelers Nation what they think about George Pickens. They think he's a top 5 guy in the league. So I don't think a lot of people are really valuing him very low right now. I would just challenge that. I think he's a good player. I just think that offense is disgusting. They through 2 weeks in the NFL, they have 1 touchdown. I don't think that Justin Fields will be able to get him the ball consistently because Justin Fields is not a very accurate or good quarterback, in my opinion. At least I know I just made you Justin Fields lovers out there mad, but that's just my opinion, man. And like he's the only like he's the only talented person other than Muth on that offense. I don't see how you don't, like, whenever you play a team with a good corner, how they don't shadow him the entire time. I don't see how, if you're playing a team that has a defensive coordinator that's worth their salt, they don't double cover him, right? Like when your offense is so bare of talent and that's the only guy who does anything, I don't see how there's not a hat on him the entire game. So I like him as a player. I don't like the situation, but I mean, he could be a winning move. You never know. There's like just this ongoing argument between like how talented a player is and like what their situation is. What do you value more in fantasy? I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? But I see the vision for George Pickens at least, and maybe if he turns some of those catches that weren't into catches that were, he pays off for you.
You're always going to, there's talent, there's usage, and then there's the context the players in. That's sort of the combination of that is what dictates their price. Normally, when you're talking about a buy low, you're trading off on one of those. And with him, you're clearly trading off on a tough context.
Yeah.
Stop.
All right, we'll do my buy lows next. DJ Moore is the first one. I am a DJ Moore bag holder right now. And honestly, okay, so here's the deal. Like, if you have DJ Moore right now, you're not happy with him, right? Like, I'm certainly not happy with the production thus far. The main reason I have him on the buy low list is I actually got to watch the whole game last night between the Texans and the Bears. To me, Caleb Williams looks, he's still a rookie, obviously, but he does a lot of things that I think are indicative of success long term. I think that he just needs a little bit and he'll get there. And all DJ Moore needs in this offense is a quarterback that can feed him, I think. So you could probably, especially with if you get the right DJ Moore manager, right? I mean, maybe they weren't bought in on him really at the beginning of the year. They're kind of seeing the mid production. They're not as in. Like, you might be able to get him for surprisingly cheap right now. It depends. Poke around. You're not going to get him for peanuts, that's for sure. But if you can trade I don't know, Stephon Diggs for him, I'd probably do it. Um, next
Would you
on,
trade JSN? Would you do JSN for DJ Moore?
I
Would you give up JSN for DJ Moore? Or would you give up
yes,
Brian?
yes, I would give up JSN for DJ Moore, 100%.
Would you give up Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yes, 100%. That's like
Xavier Worthy?
yes, 100%.
Okay.
I
Yes.
basically my prognostication of DJ Moore is he's still a one. I think he's a locked in wide receiver one, and he has like DJ Moore's an explosive enough player where he can just win you weeks outright if he pops off. Like it just hasn't been there yet for this Bears offense. They're averaging the lowest yards per play in the NFL right now. They're even lower than the Panthers in yards per play, which is an insane stat, but it just is what it is right now. I think the Bears drew two tough defensive matchups against the Titans and the Texans, like
Yep.
they're getting easier teams they're going to be playing here coming up. I think the Panthers are on the schedule. The Cardinals are definitely like an up and coming team to me, but I don't love their defensive pieces. I think that as the schedule gets a little bit easier, Caleb's going to be developing at the same time. You're going to start to see those 20, high 20, low 30-point games from DJ Moore coming up eventually. So depends on what you can move him for, but I'd be buying. Next is Deontay Johnson. I just can't quit the Panthers. I just can't. I have him rostered in 3 leagues, and you know, there's a
Same.
there's a chance he's on your waivers right now. There's a lot of people that saw how disgusting the Panthers experience was and just dropped this guy.
Yep.
I'd be on the lookout if you can get him. Here's like Andy Dalton being the starter in Carolina has breathed new life into this team, in my opinion. It like I don't think that you could pick a quarterback that would just tank every fantasy asset around them quite like Bryce Young did. Incapable of throwing the ball 10 yards down the field. It was disgusting. It doesn't get worse than it's looked in Carolina. But the fact of the matter is they're not a very good team. Their defense stinks. They're going to give up a lot of points. If they have a quarterback like Andy Dalton, who's just going to be throwing it a bunch, and he's not scared to take shots, right? Like at the end, Bryce was shell shocked. He was just throwing everything behind the line of scrimmage. He refused to push the ball downfield. Andy Dalton, he does not care at this point. I don't think he's going to be up there trying to make plays. I see Deontay Johnson, especially in a PPR league, is probably a target monster. I would guess, right? Like I mean, he doesn't have much competition there, like unless you're a big Adam Thielen guy still, which I mean, I don't think he's terrible, but I think that Deontay Johnson is far and away right now the best pass catcher that's going to be available, the best chain mover. You can get him for probably absolute dirt cheap right now. You could probably send insultingly low offers, and managers will just want to get him off their team. You can get him as a throw-in to a larger trade, right? Like I would be looking to buy cautiously. I would not pay very much to get him right now, right? Just because of what his market value is. But I think that he has flex upside going forward with Andy Dalton steering the ship. Next is Jonathan Taylor. This is kind of piggybacking off of my "you're an absolute idiot for liking Jonathan Taylor over A Chain" arguments on Twitter. But seriously though, this guy is elite. He's in a great offense. Shane Steichen is his coordinator. Right now, like you know, the returns as a first round pick haven't been great. I don't think he's gone over 20 points so far. I think he's gone like low tens each time. This is a premium guy that managers aren't going to part with him easily, but if you give them a nice, if you bait them right, I think you can get him. And his usage is absolutely elite right now. He's on the field for almost every snap. He didn't play in the fourth quarter against the Packers, but that was a weird one. I'd be buying him if you can.
He's
Next is
averaging just over 12 points, 12.6
yeah,
points per game so far.
it's not bad, but it's not like he hasn't won you weeks yet, right? Like
No,
no.
no.
Next is Diggs. This is in the same vein is Tank Dell. Right now he does not have the air yards of Tank Dell, aka prayer yards. He and like a lot of people are calling him a check down merchant, which that's an interesting take for a player like Diggs. They the theory here, right? I've kind of let the Diggs is the wide receiver one in Houston ship sail. Coming into the year, I was so Diggs pilled, it was disgusting. I was drafting him everywhere I could. Out of 4 teams I have, he's on 3 of them, right? Like, so I'm bought in on Diggs, but I think it's just kind of like the Houston wide receivers in general. I'd be buying them if you can. Nico Collins, I don't think he's going anywhere, but the target dispersion right now is just so concentrated towards Nico. Like every single time, almost every single time CJ like gets in trouble and scrambles and is looking for someone, it's always Collins right now. The, Diggs and Tank are both great players. I would assume that number one is Tank gets a couple more games under his belt and gets a little bit more healthy, and two is Diggs just kind of gets integrated more into this offense. They're going to start getting some of these looks. They're really talented. You're buying in on a good offense. You could probably get Diggs, especially if you have one of those managers that views him as a check down merchant for pretty cheap right now. So I'd be looking to buy him. Next one is Christian Watson. This is one of Yanni's champions. I like the kid. I think he's very good. To me, Jaden Reed is still the far and away one in Green Bay. Like I was blown away at how good Jaden Reed looked week one when Jordan Love was on the field. And right now, like the Packers, even though they won on Sunday, they do not have a passing offense with Malik Willis in there. It's going to be another couple weeks until Jordan Love gets back. And this guy, Christian Watson, is just going to be sitting on fantasy managers' benches, not really doing much. I would be shocked if anybody rolls out Christian Watson right now. If you have a manager that's dealing with injury or whatever, right? Or you can offer, like, this is one of the ones where you offer guys like depth, like, hey, I can add bench depth, like, or if you need a guy to like start right now, I can do that for you. If you're a roster that can afford to have Christian Watson on your bench, I would be looking to try and get him because he has all the potential in the world if Jordan Love is good, right? Like that's the whole thing. You have the unknown about his role in the offense because his career has been in production has been so erratic, and you have the Jordan Love questions. But I mean, I'm bought in on the talent, and I could see him exploding, right? Like he could be like the 12 touchdown rookie season with Aaron Rodgers. Last but not least, Travis Etienne. It's been tough sledding for Travis. He's kind of gotten there. I think week one he had like 20 points or something, but the Jaguars
Yeah,
offense.
he had over 11, but he had that 8-point swing with the fumble at the one.
That's right. That's
He was
right.
going into the goal and he would have had 19 points, and then he came back with 13 or 14 half PPR this week.
Okay. Yeah. So like, it just hasn't felt good to have Travis Etienne on your roster so far. Like, you probably spent, a second round pick getting the guy, and he's getting you like 10 points a game. Like right now, it's probably a tough pill to swallow for people who spent high draft capital on him. But the fact of the matter is, I like the kid. I think he's supremely talented. I think he's liable to take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. I think finding a running back like him is pretty hard to do. And I think that overall, Trevor Lawrence has looked weird, right? And I think that the offense as a whole has struggled because of that. But like on the same note, I think that he'll kind of get it together. Like Trevor Lawrence has played three good quarters of football so far. He had a good first half against the Dolphins, and he had a good last quarter against the Browns. I think as the year goes on, he's going to look a little bit better. I like the Doug Peterson offense. Even though people are calling for his head right now, I still think he's a good coach. I would buy in on Travis Etienne if you can. He's going to be an expensive one if you're doing a deal for him, probably. But I would trade a guy like Dobbins for Etienne all day. I would trade a guy like who else did I trade? Jalen Waddle. I don't think anybody's wanting Jalen Waddle right now. Um, I don't.
Ramondre, I would trade
Yeah,
Ramondre for him.
yeah.
I would try to. You could probably throw in a little bit and try to do Brian Robinson. You could probably get if you put enough with Rashad White, maybe. Yeah. Also, Tank Bigsby has what is a potentially few week shoulder injury,
Yeah.
so you can expect elite usage going forward for ETN.
All right, and that's gonna do it for us this week. If you made it through the whole video, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Let us know in the comments if you traded Devon Achin, and if you did, what you got for him. And we'll
Yeah.
catch you later this week for the head coach episode.
Yep. Thanks, guys.